Real quickly before I jump into the video, I want to let you guys know that my G Fuel code ESPRESSO is 30% off right now until, I believe, this Tuesday. So if you guys want to check out a flavor for the first time or get a restock, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. That'll take you and pre-apply the code. So go out over to gfuel.com and use code ESPRESSO for 30% off. Totally honest, today's video is going to be a bit more of a just simple conversation, a talking point rather than one that isn't anything new, but instead is just the result of me finally returning home after about 2 weeks out and having some time to sit down and game. We've been talking a lot about Modern Warfare, and I imagine we still have some stuff to come because there are some things that I didn't quite get around to. I was having some laptop errors and everything, so I was a little behind schedule on where I was hoping to be with all the content from Modern Warfare on the trip whenever I turned back to a vacation to do some work there before heading back to where I ultimately am now, back at my setup. But with the new update coming to Black Ops 4 this week, naturally as someone who talks about the up-to-date and current event stuff, the focus will kind of shift for a bit here back to the primary game that we have right now in front of us. But when I got home late last night, I went to check in on Black Ops 4 full well knowing that we haven't had much content updates as of late, but for whatever reason it felt a little bit emptier than I kind of anticipated. It just felt off. Like it resonated more on that point, which realistically we haven't had much change in a while, but it just felt like it hit harder. And coincidentally, I actually saw somebody link earlier an article over on VG247 by James O'Connor entitled Call of Duty Black Ops 4 is still fun, but it feels like a dying free-to-play title, in which it kind of captured exactly how I felt, almost to a T, and I kind of want to build off of that now and talk a little bit about this and use it as a catalyst to kind of describe that while I still can have fun with the game, Black Ops 4 has kind of lost its identity. I'll leave the full link down there in the description below for you guys to check out the entire article. Definitely worth a read through here at this one. I'll be totally honest with you, I don't keep up with video game journalism all that much, but this one was definitely worth the read, and I think probably can capture the feeling for a lot of people very well here at this. And talking about that, I often find it hard to describe my relationship with this game, given the fact that I've been heavily critical of it, and I still will continue to be, especially if things go down an even further rotten path in relation to the business practices, and a lot of you guys agree with what I've discussed with in the past, but the core gameplay I still truthfully do have some fun with. I'll let you in on a little secret. I am terrible at finding time to sit down and play for hours and hours and hours every single day. A lot of my friends who do content creation as well for their jobs have way more time played than me in this game. But I think that truthfully, that inability to put in every waking second has still kept it kind of enjoyable to come back to in the core functionality. Again, that totally dismisses all of the business practices. We're not talking about that at the moment. It's almost like I haven't crossed that threshold to play enough to be burned out, whereas whenever you play it over and over and over every single day, it does become monotonous and doesn't become enjoyable. When you look at launch, everything was fresh, everything was new. You had some grinds, albeit maybe not as much as you maybe had in other games. One thing that always comes back to me whenever I think of this is the hero gear grind, where, of course, you had specialists that had specific uniforms that took a ton of grinding to get. We never got that, and I truly don't understand why to this day we didn't, but we had things in the likes of the ranking for MP, Blackout, and Zombies. You had Dark Matter and MP up at the very beginning. Of course, Dark Matter and Zombies and Blackout came later on in the life cycle. You had the 100%er challenges and so on and so forth. But outside of that, you didn't really have much except for the tiers when they were introduced. But now as we gear towards the end of the life cycle, even looking at the middle of the life cycle as well, it became quickly apparent that the grind was slimming down as we progressed on through time. To which now the only real grind we have is an update every month or so that added in this case, 40 new tiers with not all that much really worthwhile in that. Of course, you ended up having things like a Mastercraft at tier 20, which is cool. That was the first time we saw a Mastercraft in about 2 months or so, I want to say, here, before we ended up seeing an Operation Spectre Rising in Days of Summer. Not a single camo. We did have weapons still at that point in the tiers, but outside of that, we saw the only worthwhile thing being a 40 or 50 hour grind for an ultra weapon bribe. And sure, that's probably largely due in part because Treyarch is pretty much already working on their next title in 2020 exclusively. They won't explicitly say it, but they've moved on. Why else would David Vonderhaar end up tweeting out things like on to the next one or whatever it was that he ended up saying, and then not tweet about Black Ops 4 for weeks and months? But at the same time, what ends up capturing my thoughts to a T from this article is how perfectly illustrated it is that the focus is now on microtransactions or MTX. That's the only real updates this game has anymore outside of rotating playlists of those game modes. Also, shout out to James for citing some of my work that we were talking about the full cost of all the items of Black Ops 4 from launch to where we are now, though admittedly, a little bummed out that he cited a Reddit thread that doesn't credit my work and passed it off as if they did it. But alas, saltine crackers off the plate. It gets the point across in a unified manner that what we see is kind of like a free-to-play level of MTX peddling. When you have Black Ops 4, a lot of the microtransactions in MTX are really worse than what we see in free games that make all the revenue based off of MTX. You still have that base of $60 you have to pay to just even gain entry to the game, plus all this kind of stuff. You have constant reminders of, hey, if you don't have the Season Pass, hey, if you don't have Twitch Prime, hey, pre-order Modern Warfare, hey, new weapons in the shop in the bundle, hey, we got new reserves with a bunch of different things added in that could have been in tiers but are otherwise not, and instead they're just placed into a random number generator. It's not so much about the advertising, the gameplay, and the features as it is peddling something new to buy, but in a mannerism that, sure, on the surface doesn't seem harsh, but instead is just constant reminder plastered everywhere. And outside of that, there's really not all that much new substance. When we take a look at things like Apocalypse Z, sure, we got some cool things in the tiers, we got some uniforms and all that, we got a Mastercraft again, but realistically on a gameplay side, yes, we got some maps, but outside of that, again, being tethered to a season pass, which that model is so archaic, and thankfully Modern Warfare is finally going away from the season pass model, and that's a whole discussion in and of itself that we'll save for another day. But things that were actually updated for the player itself, you could probably count on one hand. We had a Blackout map update, we had a new gauntlet added in for zombies, and some new elixirs. Multiplayer got, what, 1 or 2 playlists? And that was about it for free updates. Everything else was put in reserves, everything else was on the more minuscule side put into tiers, but the overwhelming majority of this came in the way of things that you had to pay for in one way, shape, or form. Whether that again be a season pass exclusive, which, not to come back and rag on the season pass even more, I don't understand why you can't buy specific DLC packs like you could before. You have to either buy all or nothing, and everything else was just, again, something you had to continue shelling out money to end up getting, or yes, of course you can still grind out the game, but to an ungodly level. So when you think about it, Black Ops 4, I think, does actually fit that title, this headline for this article. The Black Ops 4 is still fundamentally, and its core perspective, still fun, but it does feel like a dying free-to-play title, something that just keeps trying to make a last-ditch effort to make any buck possible. We end up seeing that when you take a look at the shop from day one of when it was introduced to now, you end up having everything almost bundled with supply crates to end up jacking that price up, instead of just outright giving the item away like you saw on day one of the Blackjack shop. Instead of a direct purchase item, it's a direct to purchase for the supply crates, with that kind of added air quote free item being what you ended up wanting in the first place. Whether that be a weapon skin, whether that be a uniform, a Blackout character, whatever it is, you're kind of now paying just for the supply crates, and then that added air quote bonus is the item that actually you wanted. Over time, when you look at it, you can just see that it's just such a heavy push towards it and not a focus on the gameplay. So, of course, I am partially excited for Tuesday's update for the game because, well, 1, it's an actual update for the game for the first time in a while. 2, we'll be getting newer stuff like the Pandemic mode and Blackout that I'm eagerly anticipating. And 3, we'll be getting a new set of tiers to grind out for, once again, the first time in a while, something that will give us that grind style content as opposed to dark matter and such, but it's something new there that players can work on for free. But I don't know, man, coming back here after this vacation and thinking I'd just jump back on and feel right at home and excited again for everything, it's definitely a weird situation because I'm excited for the core of it, but I also know that, like this article points out, even though I can still have fun with the core fundamentals of the game, there's going to be those drawbacks. There's going to be things that the care is just not there, not even on a player side, but from seemingly a developmental perspective. The lost identity of Black Ops 4 is that no longer is the game about the content and about what the players can end up playing, but instead about what the players can end up buying. I don't think that it'll happen, but I'd love to see at least one more update, whether it be this update on Tuesday, whether it be the new operation come next month at some point, and maybe the second half of that update. But I'd love to see at least one more update be focused on the gameplay. One more update focused on giving players something that they can look forward to playing for free and not instead having to either drill themselves into the ground, lock themselves indoors for days on end to try and get something out of a supply crate or out of a reserve, I guess, because that's the grindable one. But instead, let it be something the players can just organically experience and have fun with and not have so much of a focus on the MTX and just trying to make, again, as much a buck as possible. I don't think that'll happen, but having come back from 2 weeks out, I personally thought that I'd have a little bit more of enthusiasm for jumping back into the game. But that, and simultaneously almost seeing this article, it kind of put my headspace I don't want to say in a different place, but it just opened up the clarity here to it. That realistically, it's just a different game than what it was a couple of months ago, and of course, definitely compared to launch. So that's going to wrap it up. Just wanted to kind of have a casual sit-down conversation with you guys here on this Sunday, talking about something that, I don't know, I came back and my headspace was there, and then I saw this article, which, again, explained everything that I felt almost to a T. So check that article out down there in the description below. And like I said, I am excited for the gameplay updates here at this come Tuesday's second half of Black Ops 4's Apocalypse Z, but at the same time, I know what's coming. I know it's going to be something that is going to have a drawback. So this little conundrum, I think, is a perfect illustration of my love-hate relationship with Black Ops 4, where I love having the updates and up-to-date and newer stuff to tinker around with, but I know that it's going to go away very quickly, and it's just going to be back to, again, weekly updates of the MTX. So anyways, that's where we're going to wrap it up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Hopefully enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4, MP, Blackout, Zombies. We got you covered the best updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. We get you covered here on the channel. So if any of that is you, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best place to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those. If you guys want to check out a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. Well, let's sign out of the way. Thank you guys all so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.